I was a virtuous empress for 20 years. The moment the news of my death reached the capital, the emperor and the crown prince were actually still smiling. One of them pined for his beloved noble consort from the countryside, while the other called her mother consort in front of everyone. And I, the empress, his biological mother, stood on the high platform of the grand wedding, looking like an unwanted joke. The next day, I followed custom and went to Mount Qianlong to pray for the crown prince. A flash flood swept away and broke my carriage. Everyone thought the empress was dead, but when I woke up, the very first thing I did was not to return to the palace to cry grievance, but to change into a maidservant's clothes and turn to flee the capital. I want to see, without me cleaning up after them, how much longer that father and son can keep up their dignified facade. But I never expected that just as I stepped onto the official road, I would see the carriage procession of the emperor and the crown prince from afar, heading straight toward Mount Qianlong. On their faces, there was not a single trace of panic. Who would have thought that 3 months later, when I had opened a clothing shop thousands of miles away, taken in a handsome young protector, and had a dashing merchant standing by my side, the emperor would go mad with jealousy, and the crown prince would fall to his knees. I spent 20 years as a highly praised, virtuous empress, but the emperor never actually loved me, and my own flesh and blood preferred the noble consort raised in the countryside. The father and son were in collusion, leaving my Jingren palace as cold as a desolate wasteland. This life of fake glory was something I endured until the crown prince's wedding. The crown prince refused to marry the noble lady I chose from my clan, insisting on marrying the younger sister of noble consort Yi. On the wedding day, just to spite me, he knelt before noble consort Yi in front of everyone, and even pulled her to watch the opera intimately with the emperor. I stood not far away, facing the strange looks of the eunuchs and maids, feeling as though my entire life had been a joke. The next day, following established custom, I set out for Mount Qianlong to pray for the newlywed crown prince. Who could have anticipated a sudden flash flood midway? Carriages, horses, and people all plunged into the deep abyss. Fortunately, by the grace of heaven, I narrowly survived. As I crawled out from the pile of corpses, an audacious idea came to my mind. Since no one ever cared about me in my past life, why not take this opportunity to fake my death and start anew? Once the idea of freedom took root, it was as if it had grown wings, impossible to hold back. Changing into a maidservant's clothes, I followed the stream downward, stepped onto the main road, and left the city behind. When I reached the outskirts of the capital, I saw the carriages of the emperor and the crown prince heading toward Mount Qianlong. The procession moved at a leisurely pace, without a hint of panic upon hearing the news of my accident. A few nearby merchants who were well informed were chattering away, sighing with great emotion.
Did you hear? Empress Chen met with disaster and is gone.
Oh dear. It is probably just a rumor. Look at the emperor and the crown prince. They don't seem to care at all. They even have smiles on their faces.
Exactly. Even from a great distance, I could still clearly see Pei Qi and Pei Xiaoling conversing in a calm and unhurried manner. I did not know what they were talking about, but Pei Qi suddenly burst into laughter. He instinctively touched the jade ornament at his waist, and I immediately knew he was thinking of noble consort Lai, that extraordinary woman from the countryside. In a mere 5 years, she stole my husband's heart and won my child's respect. For many years in the past, I had always felt a deep sense of frustration, unable to understand what mistake I had made. I was educated by the great Chen clan for over a decade, yet once I entered the palace, 20 years of planning and scheming, when all is said and done, actually couldn't compare to an illiterate peasant woman. This Li Wan is indeed beautiful, but the imperial harem has never lacked stunning beauties. Pondering over it for 5 years, I still haven't figured out where exactly I fall short compared to her. Until yesterday, at the crown prince's wedding, I earnestly advised him that, as the heir to the throne, he must follow the Grand Tutor's teachings when marrying his consort, abide by the rules and etiquette, and complete the entire ceremony accordingly. Though I spoke until my throat was dry, Pei Xiaoling only gave a perfunctory response.
I know.
Yet, on the wedding day, he still caused a complete mess. First, the crown princess insisted on bowing to thank Li Wan, and then the crown prince actually indulged her, taking a detour toward Chengxi Palace. After the massive crowd finished paying their respects, the emperor, Pei Kui, also rushed over in a hurry. He didn't go to reprimand the crown prince for violating the old traditions, but instead accompanied him, joining in on this absurdity at Chengxi Palace until the end. After the ceremony was completed, the 4 of them appeared hand in hand to receive the homage of the civil and military officials, watching from the corner of the high platform. My face and my heart turned completely cold, especially when hearing Pei Xiaoling call her Imperial Mother left and right, making Li Wan beam with joy. I felt my heart die even more completely. Unable to hold back, I scolded him. Pei Xiaoling, you are the heir apparent. Mind your conduct. Pei Xiaoling's face instantly darkened.
Imperial Mother, can you stop ruining the mood and nagging me endlessly? It is truly annoying.
He turned his back on me, supporting Li Wan and pulling the crown princess along as they warmly walked down the tower. Reflecting on it now, my heart still aches as if pierced by knives. I suppose by now they already know of my accident. Yet even upon hearing of my tragic death, the father and son still smile as before. They do not care about me at all. They might even wish I were dead. With the last shred of hope in my heart gone, I hid in the crowd and fled the kingdom. I headed straight south along the mountain paths, planning to escape as far as possible and find a place to settle down. But the jewelry that symbolized my status as empress had all been left at the bottom of the abyss. Fortunately, I was quick-witted enough to take dozens of taels of silver from a maid's pocket, along with a few pieces of jewelry. With this money, I successfully reached Bianzhou. This place is thousands of miles from the capital. I reckon Pei Kui and his son will never be able to find me. After settling down in a quiet courtyard, before half a month had passed, news arrived that the empress had passed away. A state mourning of 3 full months was declared. Instantly, the common people lamented her loss. Some praised my virtue and kindness, while others set up longevity tablets for me. I pretended not to see any of it. I bought a small courtyard right next to a small storefront and hired 2 young maids, planning from now on to live my own life in peace. But what kind of life did I want to live? This was indeed a difficult question. In the past, I lived entirely according to my family's wishes. When my elders told me to study the 4 books and 5 classics, I studied them. When they told me to practice embroidery, I pricked my fingers until they bled, suddenly having a life of my own. I didn't know how to arrange it at first. So every day, after having my meals, I would just go and stand by the city wall, watching the bustling streets, wondering what kind of business I could do. One of the maids I chose, Singar, was just 9 years old this year, an innocent child. She would chat with me by my side.
Madam, what exactly are you looking at?
I smiled and watched the bustling world, while she blinked her eyes, her face full of confusion. She had fled here from her hometown to escape the disaster, and did not yet understand that some things, though looking ordinary, are actually extremely rare. After watching from the city wall for over 10 days, I finally decided to open a tailor shop. It was not because it was highly profitable, but because most of the commoners in this city could only afford coarse cloth, while the clothing for the wealthy and noble had to be sourced from elsewhere. The shops in the city really did not sell anything beautiful, although I did not do the sewing myself. I had, after all, been the mother of the nation for several decades. Exquisite garments were things I had seen in abundance. Quality matters more than quantity. Without any rush or impatience, we would tailor a few stunning pieces. Selling just 1 or 2 sets a month would be enough to feed the few mouths in our household. Having cleared my thoughts, I offered a high wage to recruit an old craftsman in the city whose business had been struggling because he was crippled and disabled. He had been abandoned by his children and was unable to go out to find work, leaving him to stay in his room, quietly waiting to die. I invited him to be the master tailor in my shop, and then went to a neighboring, more prosperous county to purchase several batches of fashionable silk. When the shop opened, we did not make a big fuss. We merely lit a string of firecrackers and quietly set to work making clothes. The first ready-made garment I produced was a gift for the mistress of the Lu Martial Arts School, who had given me a ride to Bianzhou. She was a warm-hearted woman. On her way back home, seeing that I was all alone, she did not charge me a penny and brought me here. I had originally wanted to pay for her travel expenses, but she refused. So I instructed Tailor Song to make a hunting outfit tailored to her figure. I delivered it to my old acquaintance's door. The very next day, Lu Shi came to visit.
"Oh, sister. This outfit of yours is truly exquisite. I look so sharp and heroic in it. Even if that old man of mine saw me, his whole face would turn red."
She had a straightforward personality and an incredibly loud voice. I didn't even have time to read her expression, feeling both amused and exasperated. I guided her to a seat. "My good sister, please lower your voice a bit. Those who know would say I gave you a return gift, but those who don't might think you're an actress performing a play."
What is the rush? Exquisite is exquisite. I never tell lies. To tell you the truth, I've practiced martial arts since childhood and always thought of myself as a rough woman. But putting on your outfit today, it is both smart and charming. I truly adore it.
Lu Shi fished out a piece of silver and slapped it onto the table.
Tomorrow morning, I have to go arrange a match for my sister, who is just as rough as me, using my measurements as a guide. Sew another pink dress. Though that man has passed away, his family is indeed very wealthy. If the marriage is successful, my sister will surely enjoy a life of ease. I will come back to repay your kindness then."
She recited her sister's measurements and build, and I wrote them down one by one. I stood up to see her out. Just as I was about to close up the shop, Tailor Song spoke up hesitantly from behind me.
"Matriarch, are you truly going to make a dress for that Lu Chi?"
"Oh, the deposit has been fully paid. Should we go back on our word now?" I frowned. "What? Is this Lu Chi very difficult to deal with?" Old Man Song waved his hand.
"It is not Lu Chi, but the groom's family she is going to visit. That household has already vetted dozens of young ladies, and not a single one succeeded."
"Why is that? Could it be that the man is hideously ugly?"
"That is not right. That Shi Wang Yun is as handsome as Song Yu, extremely pleasing to the eye."
"Could he be utterly destitute?"
"No, it is not that. The Shi estate is a highly renowned wealthy clan in the city.
Then why has he never chosen anyone? Old Man Song fell silent. Early the next morning, I understood the reason. At dawn, before the shop's doorboards were even removed, there was a loud shaking banging on the door outside. Old Man Song's legs were ailing, and the young boy Chen Wang happened to be using the latrine. So only Xing'er ran forward, muttering curses. Xing'er ran in a hurry, and the person outside was caught off guard as she suddenly slid open the bolt. The fellow lost his balance, tumbled inside, and nearly fell flat on his face. Struggling to stand firm, he arrogantly lifted his face and yelled,
Tell Widow Chen to show her face and meet me.
I had just appeared when I saw a young boy of 13 or 14, his face full of fierce flesh, bellowing and shrieking at me. For someone so small, he certainly had quite a temper. Before I could even sit down, he immediately threw harsh words at me.
Are you the lady on the blind date with my father, the shopkeeper who makes clothes? You look pretty enough, but how dare you try to pocket any kind of money?
I watched him for a long time, waiting until he grew tired of shouting. I don't believe it. Xishao was dazed for a moment. What did you say? I said, I don't believe you. Where did this ignorant child come from? Daring to run wild before an elder. Have you no respect for the law? It truly made my liver ache with anger. Having been empress for several decades, I detest ill-mannered juniors above all else. Call me old-fashioned if you must, or mock me for being stubborn. The family rule I uphold is that juniors must behave like juniors, no matter whose child they are. Their character must be disciplined. This young master of the Shi family, look at him, dressed so elegantly, yet speaking with such a lack of breeding. He was about to turn on his heel and slip away. Stop right there. I glanced at him sideways. Your hand is injured. Let me apply some ointment for you before you leave. Thinking that this little rascal would go home to complain. There would surely be a storm brewing tomorrow. I had originally intended to just stand by and watch, but seeing that despite his expensive clothes, his body was covered in both new and old scars, I was reminded of Pei Shaolin, whom I had spoiled since childhood. For a moment, a pang of sorrow surged in my heart. Hearing this, Xishao was taken aback. He glanced at me for a brief second, struggled with himself for a long time, and only then slowly approached. With a soft thud, he squatted down right beside me. I pulled his wrist toward me. There was a bloody scratch on his skin, likely caused by accidentally getting scraped during his struggle. I rubbed on some ointment for bruises, then wrapped it with a strip of silk. I massaged the area as I tied a tight knot. They are all done. Now get lost. And remember to visit a bit later tomorrow morning. Xishao, who had been staring blankly at the scratch, was dumbfounded upon hearing this.
Why?
I can't wake up too early, after going through so much trouble, to escape the formal morning bows of the imperial concubines. The very first important thing, after leaving the palace, was to master the art of sleeping in. My anger towards Xishao during the day was largely because I hadn't slept well. Leaving me with a pent-up temper. Telling him to come later was, at its root, was also out of consideration for him. I waved my arm, ordering Xishao to leave immediately. The next morning, I had expected his family to come and make a scene, but when the shop shutters were taken down, he was still the only one there. Upon seeing me, his eyes flickered with a spark, though he desperately tried to suppress his emotions.
My wrist got hurt because of you. You have to take responsibility for applying the medicine.
We applied it last night after dark. If we are to reapply it, it must also be after dark.
Then just hang around here until nightfall.
Don't you need to study?
No need. Even my dad says reading those scraps of paper is useless.
Nonsense. Education is what proves most useful. At critical moments, it was precisely because of my education that I stood out among the Chen family's children and became the empress, mother of the nation. Later, when fleeing to Bianzhou, it was also because I was literate that I could quickly set up my business and avoid being swindled by others. Therefore, I absolutely detested it when others refused to seek knowledge. In the past, Pei Shaoling was driven nearly mad by my forcing him to study. The reason he favored noble consort Yi was entirely because every time he visited her palace, he could ignore all responsibilities and indulge in wild, mindless fun. Realizing I was thinking of that brainless, ungrateful wretch again, I forced myself to cut off the old memories and suddenly looked at Xishao. This won't do. I do not like uneducated, illiterate people. If you want to hang around my place, you must study hard and learn to read. Xishao grew a bit irritable.
My old man has plenty of money. What is the point of studying?
Are you going to study or not? If not, then get out. His words caught in his throat. After a long pause, he let out a frustrated, cold snort.
I'll study. I'll study. Just don't drive me away. I'll study, all right.
I sent Xing'er to buy a complete set of writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones, and then went to the bookstore to purchase the 4 books and 5 classics. In my spare time when I wasn't hosting guests, I taught Xishao to recognize the characters one by one. He was highly intelligent by nature, but he simply couldn't sit still before even a single stick of incense could burn. It was as if needles were pricking his backside. One moment he was playing with the brush handle, the next he was fidgeting with the desk, which filled me with frustration. Whenever this happened, I lost my patience entirely. With a sharp smack, I brought a wooden ruler down, striking him right on his backside. Xishao Xiao gasped in pain. You must focus your mind. Only when you have mastered your lessons can you afford to look elsewhere. If you play with this one moment and fiddle with that the next, when will you ever understand anything thoroughly? And how can you not fail to live up to your teacher's guidance? If you carry on like this, how can you ever grow into a pillar of the state, a talent of great promise? My face was cold, my voice kept low, and my words were rather harsh. Xiao's face turned pale, and he said nothing. He lowered his head, and she bit her lip, looking somewhat resentful. Seeing him like this, I was suddenly reminded of Pei Xiaoling. Pei Xiaoling was just the same. Every time he was scolded, he would put on this sullen, lifeless expression, practically begging someone to comfort him. Thinking of this, I stepped closer to Xiao's side and gently patted his head. I only hope you understand that my lecturing you is because I want you to make progress. If you continue to drift along aimlessly like this, even if your future years might not be utterly miserable, you will certainly never be able to make your late mother proud. Young Master Shi's mother, was once a well-known young lady of noble birth in the county. After marrying into the Xia family, she was locked away in the inner chambers, not even having my luck to escape. Locked in that courtyard for 8 years, she died of depression, leaving behind her only child. Naturally, she would have hoped for him to achieve honor and nobility. I patted Xiao on the shoulder, although I cannot fully fathom what your mother hoped for. Any woman in this world who has a child, at the very least hopes he will achieve something in life, live with unyielding integrity, and conduct himself without shame before heaven and earth. Only after cultivating virtue and character can one attain true wisdom. Ask your own heart. When you used to speak such foul words, and behave like a rogue, if your mother had witnessed it, could her departed soul truly rest in peace? Xiao's lips turned pale, and hot tears streamed down one by one from his clear eyes. After a long silence, he said, "Shopkeeper Chen,
I admit my fault. Please teach me again from the beginning."
From then on, Xiao completely changed his old habits and began to study literature diligently. One could see that it was still difficult for him to quiet his mind at first, but as time went on, he gradually became more settled. He was indeed very intelligent. Once he focused his mind, he could understand a vast amount of poetry and prose instantly. In this manner, another half a month passed. Judging that his foundation was now solid enough, I suggested he return home to speak with his family and properly go to a school to formally take a master. That evening, as the twilight deepened, Chen Wang was just about to close the doors when a carriage hurriedly drove up. A servant helped a man down from the carriage. This fellow took 4 or 5 quick steps forward and called out to stop me as I was about to walk into the inner courtyard.
May I ask if shopkeeper Chen is in? She have come to pay my respects.
I turned my head and saw Shi Wangyun, whose family is the wealthiest in the county, and who is as handsome as Song Yu, standing straight outside the door. He was remarkably handsome, even shrouded in the twilight. His features were still striking. I composed myself and said calmly, "I am Chen Qingli. Who are you looking for?" Shi Wangyun quickly swept his gaze over me, and after sizing me up, he actually lifted the hem of his robe, took half a step back, and bowed deeply.
Please accept my respects, shopkeeper Chen.
I raised my eyebrows and stared at him solemnly. "Master Shi, what is the meaning of this?" Shi Wangyun stood up and said,
I do not mind if you laugh at me, shopkeeper. My son, Xiao, used to cause me endless worry, to the point where I wanted to beat him every time we met. Recently, I had business in the capital and was away for several weeks. Upon my return, Xiaoer had completely changed his nature. After asking around, I learned it was all thanks to your dedicated guidance, shopkeeper Chen. So I rushed here immediately to express my gratitude for your careful nurturing of my son.
I was slightly puzzled. Logically speaking, with the Shi family's immense wealth and influence, they should never have raised their young master to be like that. Shi Wangyun said guiltily,
The elders in my household doted on their eldest grandson too much, and his maternal aunt would constantly whisper nonsense in his ear.
Before he met you, shopkeeper, Xiaoer resented me for many years. By the way, with his mother having died in the depths of the mansion, whether it was Xiao or his maternal relatives, there must have been a lot of resentment in their hearts. Yet Master Shi had failed to discipline him in the past. When I first met Xiao, though he was just a small child, the words coming out of his mouth were too foul to listen to. It was only out of anger that I decided to discipline him. Shi Wangyun sighed.
The Shi family's business spans many provinces, and I truly could not spare any time in the past.
No wonder Master Shi was looking to arrange a marriage for a new young mistress earlier. I suppose it was to have someone manage the inner household. I did not say a word to this. I accepted Shi Wangyun's bow of gratitude, hoping this whole affair would end here. Who would have thought that 2 days later, Mistress Lu would come to my shop sighing and lamenting.
My sister-in-law's potential marriage. It just fell apart completely. You have no idea. Our young lady took a liking to Shi Wangyun at first sight, and her heart was full of joy. But that Shi Wangyun, he actually didn't take a liking to our young lady. Tell me, our family's girl, whether in intellect or looks, where does she fall short? That Shi Wangyun only glanced at her for a brief second, and then politely declined. You don't know how miserably my sister in-law wailed after returning home. She went through so much trouble to find a handsome man she liked, only to be rejected.
There are plenty of handsome men in the world. Just find her another one.
There are many handsome men, but handsome men who are also wealthy are rare. Within 100 miles, one who excels in both is only Shi Wangyun.
I could not interject in this. I did not care much for power, wealth, or looks. If we are talking about looks, Peike was a famously handsome man when he was the crown prince. If we are talking about talent, who in the current imperial court could best him? But what did that matter? Didn't they still prefer other women? I smiled and saw off Mistress Lu, who was still sighing over how difficult it is for love to be perfect in this world. Right at this moment, Shi Xiao dragged Shi Wangyun over to me. He was shouting as he walked.
Dad, if we must find me a mother, I only want shopkeeper Chen. Hurry up and propose to her.
What a good grandson. Truly a good grandson. I went to the trouble of teaching him some culture. He actually pushed his own father onto me, and even argued plausibly.
You see, you are all alone. And my father is also a widower. You are charming and soul-stirring, and my father has a nose and eyes. You told me before that you didn't want children. What a coincidence. My father has already had me. In the future, I will be your youngest son. Do you like silver? My father has plenty of it. There are millions of silver pieces in the treasury, and boxes full of emeralds and jade. As long as you agree, we will bring it all to your manor. Just be my mother. Aside from you, I don't like anyone else.
He spoke so plaintively, and as he spoke, he kept shoving Shi Wangyun forward.
Father, say something. If you don't speak up, your woman will be completely lost.
Shi Wangyun ultimately had red ears. He bowed deeply and said,
My son is brash. I hope the shopkeeper is not angry, but I truly admire you. If you do not despise my vulgarity, could you allow me a chance?
For the Grand Empress of the dynasty to be proposed to by a merchant, what did it feel like? The answer was, quite interesting. Putting everything else aside, Shi Wangyun was extremely handsome. Under the glow of the moonlight, he looked even more captivatingly charming. I couldn't help but glance at him sideways. Master Shi,
Alas,
I do not wish to marry, but I don't mind finding a lover. Do you think you could accommodate that? Shi Wangyun choked on his own spit. He stared intently at me, as if trying to process the words I had just uttered. When he finally understood, a deep reddish-purple blush crept up his neck. And then, with deliberate slowness, he covered Shi Xiao's ears.
shopkeeper, your words are indeed remarkably candid, but I am willing.
From then on, Shi Wangyun would come to my place every few days to rest. Under the pretext of fostering our relationship, every single time, he would bring either a gold hairpin or a jade pendant. Each gift was more extravagant than the last, but I didn't care for any of them, tossing them casually onto the side of the table. Seeing my cold expression, he seemed to have a change of tactics one day, and brought up the recent turmoil in the imperial palace. Shi Wangyun said, ever since the late Empress Dowager passed away, the emperor did not rush to appoint a new empress. Instead, he put his highly favored noble consort Yi in charge of the imperial harem, hoping to elevate her to the throne after some time. But who could have expected? Noble consort Yi is completely uneducated, and she understands nothing of the art of political balance. First, she coveted the monthly allowances of the other concubines, forcing them to go cry and complain to the emperor. Then, during an audience with foreign envoys, in front of the entire court of civil and military officials, she took a liking to the jade pendant worn by an envoy's wife, even though the other party made it clear several times that it was a relic left by her late mother. Noble consort Yi still threw a tantrum and snatched it. In the end, having no other choice, Peikyu had to trade 3 imperial estates to get the jade pendant back. Afterward, officials submitted memorials to the throne, demanding punishment for noble consort Yi's disgraceful behavior. Suddenly, Peikyu found himself utterly vexed. The crown prince's situation was no better than his. He had made a grand show of marrying noble consort Yi's younger sister, all to signal a complete severance of future deep-seated interests with the Chen clan. But the Chen clan, setting aside me as the former empress, still had several other daughters of concubines, were married off to the chieftains beyond the border, and the Wang clan of Fuxian. The clan would never bet its entire fortune on a single woman. After my death, the family began to win over the 9th prince of Fuxian. The crown princess's maternal family was corrupt and broke the law, so the Chen clan sent their disciples to impeach them relentlessly. The crown prince and the emperor tried to cover up the disasters caused by noble consort Yi's entire clan, suffering countless setbacks in the process. It was rumored that one day, the emperor was so infuriated that he lamented aloud in the imperial study.
If only the empress were still alive.
The crown prince also flew into a rage at the crown princess, saying,
Had I known you would cause such trouble, I should have let mother choose the daughter of the Chen family for me.
Yet, there is no medicine to bring back the dead. Since they chose their own marriages, they had to bear the consequences. When the scandals of the inner court leaked out, the commoners could not be silenced, and gossip spread everywhere. Having no other choice, the emperor and the crown prince decided to embark on an inspection tour to the south. In an attempt to save face, Shi Wangyun had originally come to the capital to purchase goods. Upon hearing this gossip, he sighed deeply in his heart. He told me, "I heard the late empress worked tirelessly, acting with utmost caution, just so the emperor and the crown prince could earn a reputation for virtue. But she suffered from poverty and oppression in the deep palace. Though she appeared glamorous to others, she must have been suffering terribly inside." When I first heard this, my heart skipped a beat. How do you know she was suffering? That noble consort Yi was originally a countrywoman. After entering the palace, she enjoyed exclusive favor, yet no scandals were ever reported. If not for the late empress managing things behind the scenes, I wouldn't believe it for a second. Yes, even he, a passerby, knew how much effort it took to clean up noble consort Yi's messes. Take the visits of foreign envoys to the capital, for instance. Noble consort Yi had secretly made countless fools of herself in the past. It was only through my iron-fisted discipline, using both carrot and stick, did I finally force her to keep from running wild in the imperial court. Therefore, every time noble consort Yi crossed paths with Pei Kui, she harbored deep resentment in her heart, and constantly made underhanded complaints about me. Later on, she realized more and more that I cared deeply about Pei Shaoling, so she deliberately spoiled him, all for the sake of causing me grief and pain. I played the villain for 15 years, and no one knew how stifled and frustrated I felt inside. Today, Shi Wangyun's words brought me immense comfort. I pinched his chin slightly. "Wealthy merchant She, you truly know how to cherish a woman." Shi Wangyun tilted his head up and gazed at me infatuatedly.
I am glad the proprietress recognizes my sincere words, since you are so understanding of a woman's misery.
Then why did the young master's birth mother pass away in a side chamber? Upon hearing this, Shi Wangyun's expression darkened slightly. Just when I thought he was going to defend himself, he raised his eyebrows with a carefree air.
Past affections are not for me to speak of at length, but from this day forward, I will dote on the proprietress alone. I wonder if the proprietress would grant me an opportunity to get closer.
He raised his hands slightly, revealing his smooth jawline. Within his pitch-black eyes, an intense emotion surged without reason. Shi Wangyun was 29 years old, with a robust and sturdy build. Even through the fabric of his clothes, one could feel his burning warmth. I waved my sleeve, signaling Singer to close the door and leave. Meeting Shi Wangyun's slightly startled gaze, I bent down to kiss him. In my life so far, I had only experienced one man, Pei Kui. He had a cold and indifferent temperament, valuing scholarly pursuits over physical ones, so our intimacy in bed had been extremely dull. The next morning, I did not get up at my usual time. Singer, assuming I had fallen ill, carried the wash basin and was about to barge into the bedroom. Fortunately, Old Man Song was quick-witted and nimble, and held her back tightly.
You little rascal. Where do you think you're sneaking off to?
Shinger was completely bewildered.
To wake the shopkeeper. It is almost noon. She needs to get up.
Old Man Song sighed with a knowing look.
Forget it. Don't wake the mistress. We'll look after the business ourselves today.
Seeing Shinger standing there dazed, he quickly shooed her away, finally dispersing the crowd. Inside the room, I felt a bit drowsy, grateful that Old Song had saved my dignity. From behind, my male companion pressed close, locking his arms tightly around my waist.
Qingli, come back to the Xie family with me. I will give you an honorable status.
I waved my hand. There is no need. Master Shi, we agreed this is only a bedroom affair. So from now on, Shi Wangyun pressed tightly against my back, refusing to budge. With a tense face, he stared at me with a look full of resentment. Yet, he didn't dare to throw a tantrum at me. At dusk, Shi Xiao returned from school, with a face full of surprise.
Dad, what did you do? Why is your face so gloomy?
Ignore your father. He is having a fit. He'll get over it in a while. Shi Xiao then giggled foolishly, happily starting his meal. After eating for a while, he spoke up again.
Aunt Chen, when will you be free? Could you come to the private school to visit me? I told my classmates that I have an extremely beautiful aunt who is superb at tailoring robes. My friends all really want to meet you.
Such a tiny kid. What kind of scheme could he be plotting? He was clearly just trying to show off. I found it quite amusing in my heart. I also felt a touch of joy. If you don't mind, I'll dress up tomorrow morning and go pick you up. How does that sound? Shi Xiao happily hugged my arm tightly.
Thank you, Auntie Chen.
His warm and affectionate attitude made Shi Wangyun's gaze turn colder and colder with jealousy. The next day, after having lunch, I carefully washed my face and drew my eyebrows. Considering that most of Shi Xiao's classmates at the private school were either officials or merchants, I chose an outfit that was understated yet carried an air of great authority. Then, using a golden hairpin, I styled my hair into the bun I used to wear every day during my time as the Empress. Once afternoon arrived, carrying a food basket, I walked slowly toward the private school. Shi Xiao's school was located in the most luxurious alley. I didn't know what was happening today, but there were very few ordinary people on the street. I walked from the end of the alley and arrived at the main gate of the school. It seemed as though some high-ranking noble was visiting the courtyard. Soldiers stood guard around the perimeter, each with a cold and stern expression. With just one glance, I wanted to retreat, but before I could find a chance to slip away, I heard Shi Xiao calling out in sheer delight.
Auntie Chen, you're here. Coincidentally, my close friend from the capital is also here. His mother just passed away, and he feels very miserable. I told him that I have an exceptionally wonderful aunt, whom I could introduce to him.
I slowly turned around. Sure enough, just a few steps away, I saw Pei Xiaoling, dressed entirely in black robes, and upon seeing me, his initially gloomy expression gradually turned into a daze, and his eyes welled up with tears. In an extremely weak voice, he hoarsely called out,
Mother.
Shi Xiao didn't hear him, and happily dragged him over to me.
Auntie Jen, look, this is my close friend, Xiaoling. His father runs a martial arts school in the capital. We met by chance at a tavern. What do you think, Auntie Chen? Doesn't Xiaoling look incredibly handsome? His martial arts are excellent too. It was he who beat back the thugs who tried to humiliate me.
I knew. Pei Xiaoling's martial arts were indeed superb. Of course I knew, because I was the one who hired top masters to teach him every single move. Pei Xiaoling's eyes filled with tears of blood.
Mother. How is it that you are not dead and managed to escape to this place? What kind of disaster did you suffer? Have you lost your memory? Have you forgotten who I am? Or are you being threatened by villains? Trapped in this place. Do not panic, Mother. I will immediately inform my father, and we will welcome you back to the court at once.
I waved my hand. No villains are threatening me, nor have I lost my memory. I simply do not wish to return home. Pei Xiaoling's face instantly froze in place. Even someone as foolish as Shi Xiao finally sensed the anomaly. He probably did not know Pei Xiaoling's true identity, so he shielded me and gave him a hard shove.
I don't care what kind of villain you are. Stay 10 feet away from my aunt.
Amused, I stared at Shi Xiao, who looked as if he were facing a formidable enemy. What are you doing? Speak civilly. Shi Xiao scolded angrily.
You have been taking refuge in Bianzhou for so long, yet they never came looking for you, and you never spoke of them. They must have done something terrible to abuse you.
It must be said that Shi Xiao is indeed like his biological father. He is not evil at heart. In just this brief moment, he actually saw through the deep sorrow in my heart. I grabbed Shi Xiao's wrist tightly. Stop it, stop it. Look how worked up you are. I, your aunt, am not even angry. What are you getting so worked up for? I reached out my arm to wipe the sweat from his temples. Seeing this from nearby, Pei Xiaoling's face grew increasingly miserable. He wanted to step closer.
Mother, I am sweating too.
Yet I did not tend to him as I used to. Oh, then wipe it yourself. After saying this, I pulled Shi Xiao along, intending to leave the scene. At this moment, Shi Wangyun also came rushing over in a hurry. He still did not know what kind of trouble had broken out. Dressed in bright and eye-catching attire, upon seeing me, he took 4 or 5 steps forward and tightly clasped my waist, saying to Shi Xiao with a face full of pride,
I kept you and your aunt waiting for a long time. Let us return to the manor.
Father and son share the exact same temperament. I smiled and leaned into Shi Wangyun's chest. Forget it. Since things have come to this, let this serve as our final moment of warmth together. As expected, that very night, Pei Kui's iron cavalry surrounded and blocked my courtyard layer by layer. The soldiers kicked open the wooden gates. I sat coldly in the center of the courtyard. We have not met this year. Pei Kui was as majestic and handsome as ever, perhaps due to the chaos in the imperial harem. A few strands of silver hair had appeared near his ears. Seeing me, his emotions fluctuated violently.
My wife, Linger said, you were still alive. I did not believe it at first. Now, seeing you living here safe and sound, it is truly a great blessing.
He reached out his arm and stepped forward, intending to hold me tight. I stepped back half a foot. Your Majesty, you have mistaken my face. This commoner is Chen Qingli of the Chen family. I am by no means your empress.
Indeed, Chen Qingli is merely the name of the mother of the nation.
Not the empress you seek. This humble woman is simply Chen Qingli. Do you understand, Your Majesty? I do not. His expression froze for a long moment, and the frenzy in his eyes faded away bit by bit. After a long while, he finally let out a cold snort.
And here I thought something was wrong. It turns out you were just throwing a little tantrum. I admit defeat to you. During the years I abandoned you, I truly had a miserable time. If doing this can make you even slightly happier, Qingli, I will bow my head to you. But ever since you met with disaster, from the high-ranking nobles of prestigious families to the lowliest soldiers in the streets, there is not one who did not shed tears for you. I reminisced day after day, grieving that I had not treated you with warmth before. Linger felt an even deeper, heartfelt grief. He told me more than once that if he had only served you obediently before, everything would have been fine. The Empress and the ministers have already pushed things to this point. Do not be angry anymore. Return to the court with me.
He was indeed the imperial emperor, truly skilled at covering up his sins. Fine. It is fine if you want me to return, but I propose a deal.
What kind of deal?
Kill noble consort Yi. I used to be too soft-hearted, indulging them, and trying to please both sides in my eyes. Now that I have walked through the gates of hell, I am absolutely unwilling to suffer even a bit of grievance. At first, Peikwe still made excuses.
How can this be done? Noble consort Yi has, after all, accompanied me for 5 years.
Then you might as well poison me to death. I am not going back.
Very well. We grant your request.
He agreed without the slightest hesitation. I knew it. In truth, he had also been holding it in for a long time. A man like Peikwe seemed deeply affectionate on the surface, but was utterly ruthless to the bone. Noble consort Yi was once the beauty who accompanied him in composing poetry and admiring the moon. Naturally, he had wanted to protect her, but during this recent period, she and her maternal clan had caused one disaster after another. It was rumored that Minister Li, relying on his status as an imperial relative, had been greedily accepting bribes. In the past, to save face, Peikwe could not bring himself to execute them. Now, using me as a perfect pretext, Peiki wielded his blade faster than anyone else. I heard that before the imperial carriage had even left Bianzhou, the heads of the entire Lai family had already rolled. The crown princess hanged herself in her residence, and Li Wan was demoted and sent to the cold palace, where she wailed and feigned madness every day. I paid no attention to any of it, and prepared to journey south with Peikwe. Before our departure, Shi Wangyun saw through my identity. He stared at me, hesitating to speak.
Your Majesty.
His eyes flickered with uncertainty, but in the end, he kept his words to himself. I let out a long sigh, and ordered my attending eunuch to return the gold and silver he had previously gifted me. Master Shi, I thank you for your protection in Bianzhou. If you find an opportunity to come to the capital in the future, this empress will surely find an occasion to reward you handsomely. The sudden return of the empress, who was long thought to have died a violent death, sparked endless debates among the common people. Everyone marveled in astonishment, claiming I was a goddess descended to earth who could survive such a bloody and terrible disaster. They rumored that the Jade Emperor could not bear to see a virtuous soul suffer, and thus protected me so I could return like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Whether it was a rebirth, I did not know. I only knew that things were different now. After returning to court, I was too lazy to wake up early, so I excused the concubines from their morning greetings. I couldn't be bothered with the trivial affairs of the harem. Let them run wild if they wanted to. Peiki wished to mend the rift between us, and visited my bedchamber twice. Yet each time he went limp halfway through. His frustration turned to sorrow, leaving him drenched in cold sweat, unable to save face. He wanted to explain himself, but I told him to forget it. With one foot already in the grave, I wasn't that eager for such matters anyway. After saying this, I turned around and fell into a sound sleep, leaving Peikwa to stare in anger the entire night. Later, in an attempt to salvage his dignity, he actually sought out a bunch of charlatans to refine some kind of elixir. Fearing he wouldn't have the stamina to last to the end, he selected hundreds of candidates to test the waters. I simply sent batch after batch of beauties into his bedchamber. As long as Peiki was satisfied, I was glad to be spared from serving him. Several months passed in this manner. One morning before court, Peiki failed to get out of noble Lady Miao's bed. When the imperial physician examined him, he had already been dead for quite some time. An investigation revealed that the elixir contained a massive amount of cinnabar. Ingesting such an excessive dose made sudden death highly likely. Peiki remained paralyzed for several months, and in the end, no medicine could cure him. One dawn, he passed away in his sleep, never to wake again. Pei Xiaoling ascended the throne. His first major task after his accession was to select from the entire Chen clan their most outstanding eldest daughter to be his empress. Holding Chen Xianyura's birth chart, he came to sound out my opinion. In truth, regarding this generation of the Chen family's grandchildren, I hadn't seen them in a long time, nor did I care whom he took as his consort. His endless rambling only made me feel drowsy.
Very well, Your Majesty, whomever you fancy, you may wed. This Empress Dowager will not interfere.
I was so drowsy my head was spinning. Slacking off for a moment felt wonderful, and slacking off continuously felt even better. Who had the energy to pay attention to him? The countless beauties of the imperial harem. What a grand sight that would be, seeing my listless state. Pei Xiaoling said after a moment, almost obsequiously.
The Empress Dowager seems so melancholy. Could it be that you are missing your guest from Bianzhou? I have heard that the entire Shai family recently moved to the imperial capital, and they have settled on Nanfang Street. If the Empress Dowager does not object, how about I? I shall send a servant to summon him to court.
Shi Shao. My eyes lit up instantly. I sat up straight abruptly.
Xiaoer has arrived. Quickly order him to court. We haven't met for years. I miss him dearly.
Hearing these words, Pei Xiaoling's eyes darkened slightly. A few days later, Shi Xiao entered the palace for an audience. While he was still far away, I stood up, hoping to get a clear look at him. Shi Xiao was also excited. Seeing me, he rushed over like the wind. Before his person had even arrived, his booming shout of "Aunt" had already flown to my ears. I couldn't suppress the joy on my face.
Ha! You're here.
Shi Xiao finally rushed to my side.
Let me look at you, Aunt.
He grabbed my arm and swayed it side to side.
Aunt Chen, I truly missed you.
Young Master Shi, you must address her as Empress Dowager.
I raised my arm to cut them off.
Young Master Shi, you must address her as Empress Dowager.
I waved my arm to cut her off.
Very well. Xiaowei and I don't need these fake formalities.
From the bottom of my heart, I favored this young man whom I had personally dragged back to the right path. He had grown taller and sturdier, with fair skin and red lips, looking very pleasing to the eye. I carefully inquired about Shi Xiao's studies, and then asked him,
Xiao, you have reached adulthood now. Have you planned on getting betrothed?
I share my uncle's stubborn temperament. I must choose a girl I truly love before discussing marriage.
Uncle.
Exactly. Shi Wangyin. He is actually not my biological father, but my uncle.
It turned out that when Shi Xiao's mother was married to Shi Wangyun back then, Shi Wangyun had no affection for her in his heart. He gave her the authority to manage the household, and then went everywhere to do business. Young Master Shi's biological mother had a quiet temperament, yet she possessed great boldness. Somehow, she fell in love with the second young master of the Shi family, and they secretly pledged themselves to each other, resulting in an illicit pregnancy. Logically speaking, this matter was originally a scandal. It so happened that they went to a neighboring town to enjoy themselves, contracted a severe illness, and died in the wilderness. Upon hearing this, the old matriarch was both furious and grief-stricken. Fearing that the scandal would leak and tarnish the Shi family's reputation, she forced Shi Wangyun to swallow this bitter pill. Wearing a green hat of cuckoldry on his head, Shi Wangyun felt towards Shi Xiao both pity and anger, and in his anger, he could not be bothered to care. Through years of brewing, this spoiled Shi Xiao into a local bully. After he got involved with me, Shi Wangyun thought it over and over, always believing that while the truth could be covered up for a moment, it could not be hidden forever. So he chose a day to reveal the secret entirely. Shi Xiao leaned closer and whispered to me,
Uncle indeed had no other lovers in his life. Once he had you, he completely gave up on looking for anyone else.
Rumor has it that the elders once forced him to remarry. Uncle flew into a rage and swore an oath before the entire clan
That all his assets would be inherited by me in the future. He has only me as his sole heir. Outsiders claim he did it because he couldn't let go of my mother, but only those of us in the household know that he simply couldn't let go of you.
Having finally received an education and become enlightened, the current Shi Xiao speaks in a way that is remarkably coherent and sensible. I gently and comfortably tugged at the hem of his robe.
Xiao.
Ah.
If your mother could see you today, she would surely be extremely comforted.
Oh?
My days as the Empress Dowager grew increasingly comfortable and carefree, with the Empress keeping the court affairs under control. All sorts of people were also extremely filial and respectful to me. The only issue was Li Wan, who kept howling that she wanted to see me. She probably wanted to flaunt those rotten old secrets of the past to me, or perhaps beg for my mercy. But I was too lazy to move, with one foot already in the grave. I had no desire to listen to her wild raving. Fortunately, she did not last many days either. In the depths of winter, when breath turned to frost, the side palace lacked charcoal for heating. She passed away in the inner court. The next day, a eunuch came to request instruction. How should we handle this? I pondered for a moment and said,
Put her in the imperial mausoleum of the previous dynasty to keep him company.
Pei Xiaoling, who was watching from the side, hesitated to speak.
What?
Nothing.
The late emperor favored noble consort Yi above all others during his lifetime. Venting anger is just a temporary show. True lovers ought to be buried together.
Very well.
He is now trying desperately to curry favor with me. Every day, no matter how harsh the weather is, or how late the court is dismissed, he would always make a trip to my palace. Sometimes he would just look at me for a moment, and sometimes he would join me for a meal, even though I remained cold and distant. Giving him the cold shoulder, Pei Xiaoling did not show the slightest hint of displeasure. There was one occasion when the Empress could not bear to watch this anymore, and quietly pleaded on his behalf.
Imperial Mother, what happened in the past, I have also heard about. He was indeed in the wrong in that matter, but so much time has already passed. Please forgive him.
Forgiveness. While my life hung in the balance, he was laughing heartily with his father while talking about Lady Li. For such a vicious dog who has no mother in his heart, on what grounds should I forgive him? Returning to the palace was solely for the sake of survival. But from now on, I refuse to accommodate anyone at the expense of my own happiness.
Seeing the Empress's failed attempt to mediate, Pei Xiaoling must have felt extremely miserable deep down. A few times, after getting thoroughly drunk, he secretly slipped into my main hall and sobbed by the edge of my bed. I noticed it and grew inexplicably furious.
What are you wailing for? I am not dead yet. Get far away from me.
With tears glistening in his eyes, he quietly retreated again. I originally thought that I would be locked away in this deep palace for the rest of my life. Unexpectedly, one day, Pei Xiaoling said to me that he wanted to send me away from the palace to pray to the Buddha.
Imperial Mother, You were locked in the palace for the first half of your life, living unhappily. I know this, but I have always wanted to keep you by my side. I committed countless sins in the past and deeply hurt you, Mother. It is only natural that you refuse to look at me again. Your child has no words to defend himself, but from this day forward, this child only wishes for you, Empress Dowager, to be happy. As long as you are happy, this child is willing to do anything.
He sent servants to escort me to the mountainside of Mount Qianlong. I knew not when, but an extremely grand mansion had been built here. At the end of the winding rockeries and pavilions, under a thick locust tree, a guest I had not seen in years was standing there. With tears glistening in his eyes, he smiled with incomparable radiance. He tilted his head and gazed at me.
This humble one, shopkeeper, indeed harbors deep affection for you. If the shopkeeper does not disdain my humble and crude self, could you grant me a chance?
I suddenly felt my long-weathered heart overflowing with a bubbling warm spring. Unable to hold back my joy, tears streamed down my face.
Sure. It just so happens that I am short of a lover.